Welcome to Under One Roof MTL, where we are demystifying home ownership 1 week at a time. My name is Robin Flynn, and I am joined in studio, as always, by Fred Pichette of Fred and Martin Mortgages. Hi, Fred.
Good morning, Robert.
And also Martin Spalding, the other half of Fred and Martin Mortgages. Hi, Martin.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing great. More snow. Just what Montreal needs, eh? More snow. Trivia question of the week. Let's start with that. Brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. You can visit their store at the Blue Haven Shopping Center, 3705 St. John's Boulevard in DDO. The first person to text in the correct response to 514-790-0800 will receive delicious cookies from Felix and Norton delivered straight to their door. Our question this week: what is the minimum down payment required to avoid needing to buy mortgage insurance?
Whoa.
You knew it. 514-790-0800. Let's chat a little bit about what's in the news this week. According to the latest data, variable rate mortgages might be the best option right now since borrowing costs are probably going to keep falling. This is according to BMO Economics. Borrowers could save as much as $6,000 on their next term if they choose to go variable. Now, Martin, I know traditionally you've been a fixed rate guy, but lately you've been really pushing for variable, and this seems to prove your point.
That's funny. You know what? We've been saying this for, if not weeks, months. And finally, the big banks are actually supporting what we've been saying over a long period of time that since probably mid-November, we've been advising our clients to go variable. We feel that the Bank of Canada will continue lowering rates. So if you are taking out a mortgage today, it would be advantageous to jump on a variable. I'm not saying to stay with the variable for the length of your term, but certainly to be variable for 6, 9, 12 months and see how things level out. And once they level out, perhaps consider a 3-year fix or a 5-year fix. But just to give you as much flexibility as you can have right now, because there is so much instability, indecision, especially coming from that little White House south of the border, which is affecting literally everything when we speak about the Canadian economy.
Would you say that you'd want people to go with an open variable rate or a closed 5-year variable rate?
Uh, I would say held you a closed variable rate. Why not? Like the flexibility that give you a variable rate, it's amazing. If you end up breaking the mortgage, it's only 3 months of interest, the penalty, and yeah, you could make a very good saving on variable, as Martin says.
What's the difference between an open and a closed variable rate?
Well, the close is closed for 5 years, and you get a very good discount. Um, an open variable, open mortgage, technically, it's a mortgage that has a higher interest rate with no penalty. And some of the bank will offer a cap variable, meaning that they will not let your balance or your payment increasing too much, even though if the prime rate increase in the future. But I think if a closed variable rate is the solution right now.
In addition, a lot of new builds in Canada are being shelved. Apparently, again, as you mentioned, Martin, these US tariffs, this uncertainty. Supposedly, the 30-day pause that Donald Trump put in place ends this week. What's going to happen? Nobody really seems to know. There's already a housing shortage. The cost of housing is going up. Interest rates are down, so more people are jumping into the market. LJ, what are you seeing right now?
We're definitely seeing people jump into the market, right? Everyone's excited about real estate right now. It is one of these interesting situations because you have the news talking about kind of doom and gloom and everything that could be going wrong. But I've seen this time and time again. I saw it during the pandemic. The reality is, a lot of the people who are in a position to buy right now are people who don't feel they're going to be affected by potential job losses, tariff wars, etc. They feel that they're in stable environments that, even with everything else going on, they're not in a position to potentially lose their jobs, and thus they feel comfortable moving forward with a new purchase or refinance or just getting into the market to begin with, right? So that is what we're seeing out there, and the amount of meetings I've had over the last couple of weeks with first-time buyers, with people looking to upsize their home, people looking to refinance, is really, really large. And that's been awesome because it's kept us on our toes. It's kept us speaking to a lot of people. I'm super excited about the amount of people I've been able to send to even Fred and Martin that we've been working together on certain files with. But the general sentiment in the industry right now, at least for Montreal, which is very different than the rest of Canada, is that this market's about to go up in prices very, very quickly. So let's get in before we see what happened a few years ago and miss the boat again effectively.
So that's exactly the question I was going to ask you, LJ, because what we've been reading is that there's been major slowdowns in areas such as Toronto and Vancouver. But you feel again that Quebec is an island within Canada, and what goes on in the rest of Canada doesn't necessarily affect what's going on in Quebec. So do you think that the Quebec real estate or the Montreal real estate market is robust right now?
Right now, 100%. And that's what we're seeing out on the roads right now and kind of in the market. We've seen multiple offers happen and probably closer to 30 to 40% of the offers that we've been writing right now. I think a property recently received 32 offers. So no, we're not quite back to what COVID was, where that was the norm across the board. But we listed a few properties this past week, sorry. And I know that we have, I think, 15 confirmed visits at the open house at one of the properties that we listed. So we're starting to see that type of action on properties again. And we're not seeing prices go crazy in the sense that we've lost out on a few properties over the last couple of weeks with some clients in the, let's say, $500 to $700,000 price range, and they ended up selling for between $20 to $30,000 above asking. So it's not the 75 to 100,000 that we were seeing a few years ago, but nevertheless, it is above asking. It is in a competitive market, and right now, obviously, as interest rates potentially continue to decrease, well, people's buying power is going to go up, and we've seen it time and time again. As soon as people's buying power goes up, well, they go to that new limit because as long as they can float the payments, right? If they can make that, let's say, $2,500 or $3,000 a month payment, they're okay putting in that extra little down payment to cover the spread because they want to get into that house. They want to get into that new chapter of life, and they're okay going to that property that's going to resolve these things for them.
So is it a balanced market, a seller's market, or a buyer's market right now?
We have been in a seller's market in the greater Montreal area since probably 2018, and we have not gotten out of it. A couple of segments of it have gotten out of it for a very brief amount of time, and we felt like we were in a buyer's market over the last 2 years, so 2023, 2024, because it was so much softer than it had been in the previous years. But when you look at the statistics, we have never really left what is considered to be a seller's market from its statistical perspective.
So high demand, rising prices. So if you're sitting on the bench, get into the market before you miss your chance. Is that what you're saying?
100%. I even had one of our clients recently saying, it feels like 2021 all over again. We're missing out on properties. It's multiple offers, and just the frustration and the communication with him after we lost out on a second property in 2 weeks is the general sentiment right now.
Are people buying plexes, LJ?
We're seeing a lot of transactions on plexes because especially whenever you see prices are starting to go up, I mean, they go up with plexes as well. And because the higher price points and because they're financing themselves in terms of the rental income is covering the cost associated to it, it's a really interesting way to build up equity quickly for your family and not have to worry about the carrying costs. As long as you have the down payment and can qualify for that purchase, you can really put yourself in a great financial position.
I know one of the deterrent to purchasing plexes is actually having to manage the building yourself, right? Collecting the rent, worrying about all the maintenance, somebody calling you in the middle of the night because there was a leak.
I wonder where this is going.
If only there was a solution.
If only there was
I wonder who we could call.
maybe the Plex Doctor, 514-709-6397. You can go to their website at plexdr.com and then you can buy a Plex and you don't have to worry about anything. You just get to collect those sweet, sweet returns. Coming up after we check traffic, what's the difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification? It's a very important difference. We're going to find out after we check in at the CJD 800 Traffic Center.
What is the difference between a mortgage pre-qualification and a mortgage pre-approval? This is your Mortgage Minute. So you're thinking about buying a home. Let's talk about the difference between a mortgage pre-qualification and a mortgage pre-approval. It can make all the difference. A pre-qualification is a quick estimate based on some basic financial details. No credit check, no paperwork. Just a rough idea of what you might afford. It's a good starting point, but not a guarantee. A pre-approval is much stronger. The lender verifies your income, checks your credit, and gives you a firm number. Sellers today take pre-approved buyers more seriously. and it can speed up the entire mortgage process. Actually, if you're not pre-approved, more than likely your offer will not even be considered. So if you're serious about buying, a full pre-approval is the way to go.
This is Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. I'm Robin, that's LJ, that's Fred, that's Martin. We are with you until 1 p.m. Martin set it up for us in the Mortgage Minute. But Fred, why don't you elaborate a little bit on the differences between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification, because there is a very big difference between them.
Well, first of all, pre-qualification should not exist, according to me. Why? Because it's just a basic estimate of what you allowed to qualify to, and a basic estimate doesn't bring you anywhere. A real pre-approval needs to be done on based on documents, based on down payment, credit score, where's the money come from, and also it's so important that when you go see a guy like LJ, you need to have a real pre-approval in hand. Why? Because it makes it real. Like a pre-approval, it's mandatory if you want to jump in the real estate business.
Is it actually mandatory, LJ? Or is it
Is it actually mandatory? No, it's not just important. I won't work with you if you're not pre-approved. I'll put that blunt there. That's the reality.
Well, you get consultation is the bottom line there, I'll take.
Yeah,
That's the bottom line.
we'll do the consultation where we explain everything involved in the purchasing process, obviously, and then before we can visit properties, we need to be pre-approved. Okay.
Well,
So
just to say, LJ, we just did two deals together last week, and obviously it works well. Why? Because you met the client, we pre-approved them, we give you the pre-approval letter, and LJ was able to secure a property for them.
let me unpack this a little bit more for you, right? So let's say we start visiting properties and the client is not approved, which again, I won't do, but assuming I did do that, and the client says, I believe I can afford a property for $750,000. So we start seeing properties in that range of prices, obviously, and ultimately we fall in love with the property. The client starts imagining themselves living in this property, where their kids are going to go to school, how they're going to host family events. And then we go down the financing process once we have an accepted offer and they don't get approved because they didn't qualify for it. That client's dreams were just shattered. The emotional distress of the loss of that home is very, very tough to bounce back from. And now every other property that we're going to go see and compare to that property at possibly a $600,000 price point, or let's say 650 even, is not going to compare, and it's going to look terrible compared to that $750,000 price point. So, in order to avoid the client ultimately deciding to not purchase a property because they can't get over that loss that they effectively just went through, and to not waste their time, the emotional distress that comes along with it. That's why I don't do it. I don't even care so much about my time effectively going into transaction because I'm here to help people and get us to it. I'm doing a disservice to our clients if we were to allow them to visit properties that they do not qualify for, because ultimately the biggest loser here is going to be that client who isn't going to be able to get over that loss.
Also, LJ, what Martin and I do all the time, and I could let Martin talk to us about it a little bit more, but we ask our client documents. And the reason we ask about the document is to make sure we're working with the right income. I'll give you an example. Sometimes client, when you talk with them over the phone, oh, I'll make 80,000 a year. But when you receive the document, you see more like 70,000 a year. A $10,000 difference in revenue could jeopardize the whole transaction, which is that's the reason why we really put the emphasis to get the documents from our client, because we want to make sure that we're getting to the finish line with this client with the right amount and the right pre-qualification.
Martin, what kind of documents do you need to get pre-approved? Because I know you're very good at keeping all of these things organized for your
Yeah,
clients.
I don't know. I can't believe I've become the czar of documents. But before I get into documents, there are two things that just came to mind. One, you hear a lot of ads get pre-qualified in 3 seconds. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen those ads, but you can fill out these forms, and 3 seconds later, you get pre-qualified. That is worth nothing. That is not a pre-approval. That's a pre-qualification using the data that you input. So garbage in, garbage out. Second thing, we often speak to people and they go, "Oh yeah, I'm a member of Equifax and my credit rating is XYZ." When we pull out your credit report, it's not the same report as you get from the services that give you credit scores. So be very careful. When you fill out an online application and 3 seconds later you get pre-qualified, it's garbage. and make sure that your service for Equifax, you realize that that's not exactly what the lenders see. So, coming back to documentation, the basic documents, if you're employed, we'll want to see a letter of employment, we want to see a pay stub, we'll want to see your T4s, your notice of assessments over the last 2 years. If you're self employed, we want to see your T1 generals, and sometimes we will want to see your financial statements because there's a way of qualifying you called stated income. And the master of qualifying people with stated income is Fred. I've seen it time and time again where people can't get qualified, but Fred manages a way by using the revenues in your business to state an income, which will allow you to qualify. Then there are other things, where's your down payment coming from? Do you have an RRSP? I know we're going to talk about it in the next segment. RRSP, TFSA, FHSA, GICs. Are you getting a gift? Has to be a gift. So it has to come in the form of a gift letter that is signed. And it's not a loan from a family member, it's an actual gift. Um, there are all kinds of other things like government IDs. We're going to pull your credit report. So your credit score, if you really want to be considered by a traditional lender, has to be in the 680 to 700. If we're looking at alternative lenders, 600 plus. And if you're underneath that, we're going to have to go to a private lender. And we know private lenders has to be a short-term strategy to get you over the hump to technically get you to a B or to an A. But the documentation is critical because what you put in needs to be supported by the documentation.
And I want to take this one step further. The reason why we go through this process is because a lot of the time there might be a small blemish on your credit, on your income, on stuff of that nature that we can take 3 months, possibly 6 months to work out the kinks so that by the time Fred needs to submit the file to the lender, everything is exactly the way it needs to be so that the file passes. So it's not just because we want to be difficult, but the reality is we're here to help coach people and make sure that we can present the file in the appropriate fashion and that we've covered up any little things so that you can get your financing in order. And sometimes it takes two very small changes and just 3 to 6 months for it to appear on the credit bureau that way.
If you want to find out more about what your lending options are, if you want to get pre-approved for a mortgage, get in touch with Fred and Martin. Go to their website, fredandmartin.com, and they can help you out. Up next, everything you need to know about saving up for a down payment, different options you can leverage. That's coming up after the news. This is Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. My name is Robin Flynn with LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties, Fred Pichette and Martin Spalding of Fred and Martin Mortgages. We were just talking a little bit earlier about how to get pre-approved for a mortgage, but how do you actually save up for a down payment? Because I think that's the part that a lot of younger people, in particular in their 20s and 30s, are struggling with today. So we're here to help explain all of the different options to you. What are the different down payment saving options available? All the different accounts, RRSP, FHSA, TFSA. There's so many acronyms. Martin, do you want to start by maybe talking about those different accounts?
What I would really tell people is first, if you can live at home, stay at home and save your money. So don't go out. And if you're intending to actually purchase a property in the next 3 to 5 years and you're living at home, don't move into an apartment. Just stay at home. Suck it up, hang out with your parents, and benefit from the fact that they're actually paying for everything and save your money. So pretend that you're actually paying rent, but what you're doing is saving for your down payment. Because I agree with you, Robin. The toughest part for young people right now is to get that 5 or 10 or 20% down payment to do the transaction. Because a lot of people come and see us, well, I'm paying $2,000 in rent and I'd be paying $1,800 in a mortgage. Yeah, but to get to that $1,800, you got to come up with 5, 10, 15, 20% down payment. So how do you do it? There are all kinds of programs out there that you need to leverage, and you mentioned a lot of them. Starts with your RRSPs, starts with an FHSA. Can't believe I didn't stumble on that one. It's continues with a TFSA, and these are all programs that give you a certain amount of liquidity because it's nice and dandy to have money, but it has to be able to you need to be able to liquefy it. So if you leverage all the programs that are available to you, that should be step 1.
The the first program people should use is the FHSA. That's the best program for first time home buyers. You could contribute 8,000 per year up to $40,000. Like if your plan is to buy a property in the next 5 years, go for FHSA. Obviously, you could top it up with a RRSP. This is another very good strategy. I would say for first time home buyers, FHSA, RSP are key. And on the top of it, now CMHC just came out with a new program that if you don't have the full 5% down payment safe, but you have a very good credit score, let's say a credit over 720, 700, and I give you an example, you're missing a bit of $10,000 of down payment. You want to purchase a house or a condo at $500,000. You have $15,000 and you're missing out of $10,000. Technically, we could still qualify you. We call that you borrow your down payment. Obviously, it needs to be a single dwelling or a duplex owner occupy. And the requirement is to have a strong credit. And you still need to qualify. Like if you borrow that $10,000, you put it in a loan or RSP loan, and you had that monthly installment and your liability, and you do qualify based on ratio. It's that program offer you the chance to qualify even though you don't have that 5% requirement down payment. And just keep in mind, as Martin says, it's hard to get the 5% down sometimes, especially when you're first time home buyers. But there's still program out there that could really help you to achieve your goal to be a homeowner.
So that's a non-traditional down payment, right, Fred?
Exactly. We call that a non-traditional, and it's been available since January 15 by CMHC. And it's actually, I think it's a very good program because it's hard to save 25, 30, 40,000, especially with the inflation, cost of living. And if you have to rent, let's say you don't live with your parents, sadly, but I encourage them to stay with their parents as well. But it could be very helpful, this program. But obviously, if your credit score is 620 or you don't have a very good historical of credit, this will not work. But if you had pay your stuff on time for the last 2, 3 years and you have a strong credit, a good credit score, that's a program that we could look at.
I got 2 or 3 other little pieces of advice. It might sound a little bit preachy, but certain things like limit unnecessary spending. So do you really need that new pair of jeans? Do you really need that additional subscription? Do you really need to go to the restaurant every night of the week? And if you can actually be a little bit more disciplined, every penny counts. Also, if you've got a job, consider a side hustle. If you can make a couple $100 a week doing a side hustle, whatever it may be, as long as it's legal, uh, then it all counts. And the last thing, mom and dad are there, right? The bank of mom and dad. And there's nothing wrong with asking mom and dad with a little bit of a gift to help you get into a property because a property is the best way to generate wealth. And if mom and dad love you as much as they say, they can write you a check.
You guys are spicy today. I like it. Okay, so what are some ways that parents can help their kids? What if you don't have 50K sitting in a bank account somewhere, but you own your own property? Is there a way that parents can perhaps help their adult children get into the market?
Well, I would say there's a couple of ways that parent could help them. First of all, they could co-sign that first mortgage with them. Let's say you have a property paid off, you're living on a pension income and maybe a work pension income as well. Sometimes a first time home buyer, your kid need just a little push, a little help to qualify, especially the property are not like 300 like before. It's more in the range of like, I don't know, LG could tell us, but 5, 6, 700. By co-signing that first loan, you help your kid to qualify. The second option, you could give them money, like Martin says, but you could also,
No.
yeah, exactly. But you could also lend them the money. Let's put it that way. A gift is better, but you could lend it the money. And the third option is the collateral charge. Like you could give them part of the down payment by taking a lien on your property without paying a mortgage every month on your property. Your kid will pay it, and we spoke about that last week. But that's another good option as well.
Okay, so let's create, we only have about 30, 60 seconds left here, guys, but let's create a little savings plan for somebody. Let's say they make $50,000 a year, they live at home, and they're trying to save up for a down payment. So their expenses are obviously quite low. What do they need to do to create this scenario, LJ?
Okay, so if you make $50,000 a year, you net $38,000 a year after taxes. Okay, um, giving this person still a lifestyle, if you will. Let's assume they spend $1,500 a month, right? They have no house payments, but maybe they have a $500 a month car payment that leaves them $1,000 a month for going out, Uber, whatever it might be. That means that they're going to have left over every single month about $1,666 or roughly $20,000 a year. I mean, you can pretty quickly save over a couple of years, 20, 40, $60,000. I mean, you can get to roughly 50 grand in savings in 2.5 years right now. So that's why the power of living at home and really limiting your expenses or almost unnecessary expenses, as Martin put it, is quite powerful. And again, we're using a $50,000 a year salary here, which is very much the average nowadays for anybody coming out with a university degree, and even with a trade job, if you will. So the more you make, the more you can save and earn quicker and obviously get to these higher saving targets faster. But if you are able to live on a budget, you can get there a lot quicker than you think.
And a lot of these programs actually give you a tax return. So when you get your tax return, roll it back into your plan. Like, don't go say, "Oh, I just got 2,000 bucks from the Canadian government. I'm gonna go, party with my friends on the weekend." No, use that tax return and roll it back in. All it'll do is accelerate your ability to get your down payment target.
And the first $8,000 goes to a FHSA.
If you're not sure if now is the right time or you want LJ to help you come up with a scenario, you need Fred and Martin to help you out, give LJ a call, 514 500 4040. He's really good with math, guys. He will help you figure out a plan and help you decide if now is the right time if you have enough saved up. Coming up, our property of the week plus the answer to our trivia question: what is the minimum down payment required to avoid needing to buy mortgage insurance? We'll find out after we check traffic. This is Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. I'm Robin, that's Fred, that's Martin, that's LJ. We are with you until 1 p.m. My favorite part of the show is our property of the week. LJ, what do you got for us this week?
It was another tough week, and I want to just mention how grateful I am that we took 5 properties to market this week, so it was very difficult to choose which one I'd highlight. But if you are looking for a beautifully renovated home in the heart of Vaudreuil-Dorion, welcome to 14 Rue Claude, a charming 2+2 bedroom, 2-bathroom bungalow offering modern updates and a rare, huge backyard for just $550,000. Renovated in 2020, the kitchen features quartz countertops, a spacious island, and open concept layout, perfect for entertaining. The fully fenced yard is ideal for family fun, pets, or simply enjoying the outdoors. Nestled on a quiet, family-friendly street, this home is minutes from Costco, parks, top schools, bike paths, and even a dog park and hockey rink. Plus, with easy access to commuter routes and the train station, convenience is built in. Don't miss out on this rare find. Stop by our open house today from 2 to 4 p.m. If you're in the following areas and want to check out our other open houses, feel free to stop by the following properties all between 2 to 4 p.m. today. In Griffintown at 1400 Rue Ottawa, Unit 828B, or 1910 Rue de Bassin, Apartment 403. If you're in St. Henry, stop by 379 Square Sir George Etienne Cartier, only the nicest street in the entire Sud-West.
I just want to know where LJ is going to be because that's what's important to me.
Come to all of them, you might find me.
If you're in St. Henry, by the way, I'll make a food recommendation because I used to live in St. Henry. Satay Brothers. Ooh, that is so good.
Spectacular,
Amsterdam.
spectacular.
Actually, the house in Dorion, how old is that house? It looks brand new.
So the house was entirely redone on the interior in 2020. So the home is probably, I'd have to double check, but I suspect it was probably built in the 70s or 80s. But in 2020, they completely renovated, the gutted the inside, redid it. And then since then, our clients have also added a few more personal touches and upgrades along the way, making it even cozier.
Because it looks spectacular.
I love Vaudreuil-Dorion. It's such a lovely neighborhood. I have a few friends who bought houses there recently, and every time I'm out there, I'm like, it's the perfect mix of city and country living. Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
And LJ, the price range is pretty good, 550.
It's an excellent price for a starter home in the greater Montreal area. You're coming in, it's turnkey. You bring your suitcases, you live your life. The backyard's absolutely spectacular. If you check out the way what they do with the paving stones, the amount of grass area they still have, the gardening area, it's honestly an amazing house. And I didn't even mention it, but you're so close to the water on that street that connects you to Hudson. If you want to go fishing, if you have any water sports that you want to connect to, it's an awesome little area.
It seems to be a great property for first-time home buyers.
100%.
Oh, it looks like there's room for a pool too.
100%.
I think you know what?
Yeah.
With Google Earth, like you can be so Big Brother. Like there's a Jeep in the driveway. I'm sort of sitting there. Do I get the Jeep as well?
I think that's part of the exclusions, not an
Okay.
For the right price.
But
Our trivia question of the week brought to you by Felix and Norton. What is the minimum down payment required to avoid needing to buy mortgage insurance? The answer is 20%. If you have less than 20% of the total cost of the home, you will need to buy mortgage insurance, which, correct me if I'm wrong, typically costs between 2.8 and 4.7% of the amount of the mortgage, which can add up. So if you can get to 20%, that probably is the best option for purchasing a home. Okay, let's recap some of what we learned this week. So, variable rate mortgages, closed variable rate mortgages might be the way to go for right now. Also, getting pre approved for a mortgage is essentially mandatory at this point. While not legally mandatory, a lot of real estate brokers just won't work with you. They won't even entertain offers if you're not pre approved. So, it'll definitely give you an edge in the housing market. And also, we gave you a bunch of tips for maximizing saving up for a down payment. So if you missed it, make sure you check out the podcast. We're on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. That's pretty much it for us for this week. We will be back next Sunday at 12 p.m. right here on CJD 800. Make sure you check out our website, by the way, under oneroofmtl.com. And you can get in touch with LJ, Fred, and Martin individually. LJ, where do people go to get in touch with you?
You can check out our website, ljrealties.com, or on all socials with the handle LJ Aguinaga. That's LJAGUINAGA, or LJ Realties. You can also call or text me at 514-500-4040. As well, as always, if you're looking for any property management services, feel free to reach out. You can call Thierry directly, 514-709-6397, or you can check out our website at plexdr.com.
Do make sure you're following LJ on social media because I learned so much by following you on Instagram. Fantastic content every single day. Fred, Martin, where do people go to get in touch with you guys?
So it's fredmartin.com. And if you go to the website, both our phone numbers, our email addresses, and you can actually book us through our calendar. So you don't even have to talk to us. You can just book us if you want. So that's fredmartin.com. And where would we go?
Fredandmartin.com.
That's right.
I was about to say, if you're a little keen to be pre-approved, book an appointment with us. That's the first step into home ownership.
Excellent. If you missed anything, you can listen to this show in its entirety and past shows as well. Every single show we have ever done on CJD 800 is available on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. For LJ, Fred, and Martin, I'm Robin. Have a great day.